Hey guys, Gus here and welcome to this video. Today is my Christmas slash New Year's slash end of year special, and I'm going to do a few things in this video. I'm going to go through a couple of reviews. I'm going to be reviewing some products from the controversial AliExpress slash Yoymart, the guys from China, some of their products, and I'll be doing a review of a war game called Skirmish Sangin. I'm also going to go through the miniatures I painted for Ringo Simpkins's Advent Challenge. I know it's a bit late, but I've finally got everything put together so I can go through it in this video, as well as a quick vid on true metallic metals. So how to paint very basic true metallic metal, kind of a rusted, battered kind of metal look. Okay, so here in front of us we have some products that have been purchased from AliExpress and shipped in from China. Now there's been a few videos on YouTube about the whole issue with these guys recasting Games Workshop products, and there's debates and discussions on the morality of the issue. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to look at some of the things that they do, the quality of the things that they do, and in particular recasting of miniatures that you can't get anymore. Things like the demonettes, as you can see in front of you here. I've gotten a few of them out. But here's a few of the resin products I do, so let's have a quick look at those first. So these are plague toads. I'm sure you're familiar with these. You can get them from Forge World. Perhaps not the not the best model to do a review on, just because they're quite well, Nurglish anyway, so perhaps they don't pick up the best detail, but as you can see, perfectly detailed. An almost exact replica of the original products you can get from Forge World, and they capture the detail perfectly. So basically it's the exact same thing. Now I've heard some issues about the toxicity of the resin, but to be honest with you, Forge World resin is toxic anyway. You're not gonna eat that, hopefully. And obviously don't try and smoke it, because if you do that you'll get poisoned, which isn't great. So there we go. But some people have reported they get like headaches from working with the stuff, and problems with the fumes of the resin. I haven't had any such problems with the resin from them. It's just a different coloured resin from Forge World, presumably equally as toxic, but usual precautions apply. Washing your hands, don't smoke it, don't try and eat it, what have you. So there we go. So perfect replica really, so the quality is excellent. Now the main this is the main sort of focus of this quick video review, is the metal products they do. Now I'm fairly sure, I mean, I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure that the metal they use is got a higher lead content. The metal is definitely softer, and it feels more like lead than it does like pewter. So I'm fairly sure it has a higher lead content, but that makes it a lot easier to clean because the metal itself is softer. But again, normal precautions apply. Don't melt it down and breathe in the fumes, and don't stick your fingers in your mouth after you've worked with it. Just go and wash your hands, simple as. But there we go. So the quality is exactly the same as the original products. It's along the same lines as the original Games Workshop metal in terms of the quality of the cast and what have you. I mean, there is certainly some flash around the edges of the miniature, as you can see here. If you can pick it up on here, there's definitely some some mold lines and things to clean up, but that's par for the course really. That's one of the things we expect in this hobby, is you're going to have that, especially with metal models. But like I said, because the metal's softer, it's actually quite easy to clean up. But other than that, the scale is perfect, the finish on the metal is great, and yeah, they do a really good job actually, and a very affordable job as well. So here you can see some of the arms, and you can just make out on the edges there some of the mold lines and some of the flash. But again, very much in line with the original products. Now, whatever your morality or your moral issues when it comes to buying recasts from the Chinese, I think the one thing we can all agree on is it's certainly a place you can get miniatures that aren't made anymore. Case in point, demonettes. They're no longer produced by Games Workshop. At least this version of them isn't. The Juan Diaz sculpts from 2001, you can't get these anymore. They aren't made. So to try and find these on eBay is ridiculously expensive. You get charged stupid amounts of money for just a handful of miniatures. So in my opinion, this is a very viable option for getting miniatures that are no longer produced. So these aren't in production anymore, so they recast them in China, and you can buy them for a reasonable price from them, and they're not produced anymore. So why not? In terms of buying miniatures that are still produced, you know, you can have a debate in the comments about the moral issues surrounding that, but I see nothing wrong with buying things that aren't in production anymore for reasonable prices. So there we go. But here you can see on the hand weapons that is quite a bit of flash, but again, not too difficult to clean off. And here's one of the miniatures that I cleaned and assembled earlier, and as you can see, the quality is perfect. They are great, and like I said, very affordable, and fantastic sculpts, almost legendary sculpts that were made by Games Workshop a while ago and no longer produced. So there we go. That's the review on the Yoymart / AliExpress products. They're very good. The quality is excellent, and they're extremely affordable. You know, moral issues aside. So really good products. Very impressed, and they ship very quickly. I was actually surprised. I mean, they said to leave roughly a month or so, but they arrived at mine within 2 weeks. So very, very quick. So that's a quick look at some of the AliExpress / Yoymart products from China. Hey guys, just going to be going through a very quick tutorial on true metallic metals. This is more for an interesting color combination, which I find pretty interesting actually. I find it quite good to do with battered old looking metal, and kind of, you know, chaosy and very roughly made metal weapons and objects. It's a really cool color combination, and it's a very quick true metallic metal tutorial. Now the main thing with true metallic metals, if you go back and watch my non-metallic metal video, the principles are exactly the same, except using metallic paints. I find metallic paints are actually quite difficult to work with, because maybe it's just me, it probably is just me, but my eyes can't see the metallic paint properly when it's thinned down. Like my eyes can't focus on it properly, so I find it quite difficult to get the consistency right. But with this method, because it's a different color metallic onto a different color base metallic, I find it a bit easier. So the base color that I like to use is a color called Tinny Tin from the Vallejo game color range. A really great color, and it comes out looking something like this on the sword. And the color we're going to be highlighting with is Vallejo game color gunmetal metal. So replaced with bolt gun metal / lead belcher, I think, from the new Games Workshop range. So the first thing we're going to do is apply a small amount to our palette, and then we are going to thin it down with regular tap water or distilled water, because the Vallejo game color range thins down really nicely just with water. So I'm going to thin that right down, as you can see on the edge of the screen there. Remove most of the paint from the brush, and then we're going to start applying it to our miniature. So as I said before, it follows the same techniques and patterns and color theory as for non-metallic metals, but you're just using metallics. So what we're going to do first of all is drag the color towards the base of the sword along the edge, like so. And then towards the end. And already, just from that one coat, we're already seeing the effect that we want. Very, very easy technique to do. Again, because you can thin it down with water, it requires very little in the way of admin behind doing the actual technique itself. So what we'll do now is put a bit more water into the mix. Just make sure the paint is still nice and thin, and then we're going to do it on the flat edge, just to demonstrate what this technique is like. So as you can see, applying very, very thin down coats of paint, like so. There we go. So as you can see, it's a very easy technique to do, and you're using the same principles as regular regular glazing, and you can actually be quite rough with it because it's it's designed to be used for, you know, battered and weathered looking steel. Let me just see if we can get this without a glare. So there we go. Of course it's difficult to not get a glare because it's metallic paint. So what we've done is drag the paint down towards the ends like so, as you can see where it catches the light there, and all you got to do is work with very, very thin down paint with water, and just drag it to the most prominent points where the light would catch. And you can do a couple of coats of this, and then you can start going up with even brighter metallics, so things like your silver, your chainmail, up to your brightest metallics. So let's just do one more quick coat there, bit thicker. Now, a great thing to do, especially with objects that have hard edges like the sword, is once you've moved all the paint about where you want it to be, just go in and do an edge highlight with only very slightly thinned down paint, and this is just to bring out those extreme highlights and extreme edges. And as always, you can extend the edge a bit further than where you drag the paint, just to extend it out and exaggerate the shapes of the actual object that you're painting. So I know it was extremely quick, but there we have a really, really fast, quick tutorial on how to do true metallic metals just for gaming standard. This is what I like to do just for my gaming stuff, and it works. It looks nice for battered, old-looking metal. It works really well, and it's so quick to do, so quick and so easy to do. And like I said, start off with a tinny tin color and then working up to a gunmetal. And you can substitute this with any color you want. Just play around with them. You can go from a copper to a light silver. You can go from a dark silver to a light silver. Play around with coppers, bronzes, your tin colors, and what have you. And just really, really play around with it. You have a lot of fun with this technique. So hope you enjoy that, guys. Hey guys, and welcome to a quick video review of a game called Skirmish Sangin. I've had this game for quite a while. I picked it up at Salute earlier in the year, 2014, and my initial thoughts on this were not positive. That is, until I actually saw how the game worked. When I approached the table at Salute, I thought, oh boy, here we go. You know, another skirmish war game based on modern or near modern setting, and I didn't really think too much of it. I had a lot of preconceived notions about people making war games about modern, in the modern setting, and I have to say that I was very pleasantly surprised. One of the things they've done with this war game is something I think is very good, which is they've interviewed and spoken to a lot of soldiers that have fought in Afghanistan over the years from a number of different nations. British, Americans, New Zealanders, and Australians, I believe, perhaps even Canadians. So they've got a lot of first-hand knowledge to draw upon when they made this rule system, and I like it a lot. I think it's very well done, and I think they've hit the nail on the head in terms of balancing a war game with sort of a realistic setting. Now, this kind of goes into a side note about something that it's not necessarily a bad thing. I suppose it is a bad thing, but it's something that can't really be avoided in a lot of situations, which is drawing on third-hand information when you make your sort of assumptions and your views and things on the way that the troops do things in wartime. So an example would be, okay, well, let's just take the US Army for example. Okay, well, in Afghanistan the US Army organizes their rifle sections like this. Therefore all of our miniatures have to be modeled like this, and they have these weapons, and this is the way their tactics work, and they do things this way because the manual says so. I hate to break it to you, soldiers have this strange ability to adapt. Funny enough, because a lot of the time their survival depends on it. So soldiers are very adaptable. And speaking from experience, in Afghanistan things can literally change from week to week and month to month. The way that your fighting formations are organised, the way that you conduct your patrols, the way that you arm your troops, the way that you wear your equipment can literally change from month to month, and oftentimes it did change from month to month. So to put things into a manual, to go this, some lieutenant colonel or some general goes, this is the way British troops do things, and people go, oh, that must be correct because this guy wrote it and he was in the British Army at the time. Oftentimes it's not correct, and if you keep on extrapolating along these lines, you can go back all throughout history, and the same thing is pretty much true. Like if you go back and you look at historical sources on formations, battle tactics, treatises on fighting with swords and what have you, manuals are great, okay, and it gives you a rough idea of what was happening at the time. Even if it details specific techniques, a lot of the times soldiers and men on the ground did things completely differently, and what it comes down to is they do things that work, and whatever works in that particular situation, on that particular campaign, in that particular battle, they will adapt and they'll do things that way, even if the treatise or a manual or combat manual says something completely differently. So the most accurate sources you have are personal accounts, mainly from soldiers, not from officers. The problem with officers is the accounts from officers tend to exaggerate, either over-report or under-report, or have some sort of political slant in them, a lot of the times from officers. Sometimes they don't, not all the time, but generally a lot of officers' reports do. So reports from the soldiers, the regular men on the ground, where whether it's modern times from Afghanistan or Iraq, or the 7 Years' War, or the 100 Years' War, are oftentimes the best sources because they're the most accurate, and they say what is happening at the time. This is the way we did things, this is the way things were, and oftentimes it won't really marry up with a treatise or a manual. So, and that's a misconception that a lot of people have, and you can see why. It's almost everybody would make the mistake if you look at the Battle of Waterloo and things were done this way, and in Napoleonics things were done this way and things were done that way. And the thing that I always have to remind people is that yeah, sure, the manual might say that, but that isn't necessarily what happened. The manual might have said that men wore their cartridge cases this particular way. That might not have always happened, because guess what people do on the ground is a lot, oftentimes different, and people are not robots. People think that a regular soldier is a robot, and they're not. They are very adaptable individuals, and they have to be in order to survive. And this goes back, again, all throughout history. People think that soldiers from the First World War and soldiers from Napoleonics were different from soldiers today. Then I'm telling you now, they weren't. The equipment might have been completely different, and the general doctrine might have been different, but down to the individual soldier's adaptability and will to survive has remained constant throughout history. So that's the one thing they've got right in this, is they've gone to the people, the soldiers on the ground, and gone, how did you do this at this time? How did this happen? How did that happen? And because of that, they've gotten this very right. Is there any way to put it? They've gotten it very right. So I'm going to go through the rulebook. I'll put cameras down and have a look at the rulebook, and we'll go through page by page. I'll discuss the rulebook in detail. Okay, so here we have Skirmish Sangin. As you can see from the cover, they've got some MOD stock photos they use, and they use them throughout the book. Now, as I mentioned before, I do really like this game, and I think they've done a very, very good job of it. There are a few things that I think could be done a bit better, and maybe are a little bit, not wrong, but just, you'll see when I get to the end. I'll mention them at the end. So let's open this book up. Interesting little little insurgent symbol for Radio Dish Dash Publishing there. Obviously a contents page. Alright, intro with some more stock photos. I give you a fairly good intro on the Afghanistan war, and a bit of a history here on the Afghanistan conflict, and they get right into playing the game. So one of the key things with this game is something called the body stat, which is just a stat that your regular troops have, whether they're insurgents or if they're RSF or ANP or ANA, and it's pretty much the stat for which everything resolves around, in terms of initiative, in terms of anything, any actions they want to take and what have you. That's the key stat. and it works on a percentile system. So 2d10, one counting as the tens, the other one counting as the digits. The two together will give you, a score from 1 to 99, or 0 to 99, or 1 to 100. So that's the basic mechanic of the game, as well as you'll have damage dice for various weapons and what have you. So they go through a bit of the terminology here, and they get into creating a force. And then here we go, some stats. So they give you your average marine here. As you can see, there's a body stat which you roll at the start. So when you actually building your army list, you'd roll up your body stat. That armor is a salient amount, which means it's always a D10 plus 4. So that's what you'd roll when, if you get shot, what you'd roll your armor value to see if the armor would stop whatever you're getting, shot with. And they give you a body armor table here: helmet plus body armor, and helmet plus light body armor. You get a T10 plus 4, D10 plus D6 plus 4, and then you get a minus to your body stat. Now this is something that's quite interesting with the game here, is if you look at this combat phase table, depending on what your body stat is, you go in a different phase. So you get rounds of the game, so turns essentially, and each turn is broken up into 10 phases. So in phase 1 you've got your highest body stat going, then phase 2, then phase 3, etc. But the interesting thing that starts to happen is when you get to phase 3, then your highest body stat starts going again. So it starts to become staggered, which is quite interesting, and it keeps the game interesting in terms of you've always got somebody acting. You don't have sort of gaps in the action, so to speak. The old I go, you go system doesn't really apply here, which I like. I like that there's always something going on. They've got your morale table here. Morale is very important, obviously. In the fact that it's representing a fairly realistic battle. Morale is extremely important. So you'll have like novice morale 35%, average 55%, veteran 75%, elite 90%. If somebody's an NCO, you add 10%. If somebody's an officer, you add 20%. So it speaks for itself. Your morale rolls again, a percentage roll, as I explained earlier. And then you've got creating a force here. Now it goes into a quick point about action points here. So that's how you take your actions in the game. It's just simply by spending action points. All characters have 3 action points they can assign to movement, or tasks, or increasing skills. So you can spend more time focusing on a skill to achieve something, or you can spend it moving or firing or what have you. So it's an action point system. So pretty straightforward there. So as you can see so far, I mean, it's actually a really straightforward game. It's some real basic stuff to grasp. Most of your time will be spent, of course, painting the miniatures and getting your force assembled in the actual game. That's the nice thing about the system, is you don't have to spend a lot of time learning the system, but you have to spend a lot of time mastering the system, and you have to spend a lot of time thinking about tactics and maneuvering as opposed to concentrating on the rules, which is nice. So it's very much a game where you play the game, you don't play the rules, as in a lot of other systems. So you've got creating a force up here, a quick movement action point table here. So something like running would cost you 1, running 6 inches, diving an inch would cost you 2, climbing high obstacles, climbing through a window would both cost you 3. Everything else, walking, crawling, what have you, going prone, etc., is just 1 action point. So they go on. Creating a force is pretty easy to understand, and they've got a little bit of a breakdown of your basic stat line here. And as I said, skills are derived from your body stat, and then you've got damage boxes here. So if a weapon does, I don't know, D8 points of damage, and you do 8 points of damage, and somebody only manages to stop 6 points of damage with their armor, they take 2 in the light, and it keeps on adding up. And eventually you get to critical and dead, and of course with each level of wounds you become more incapacitated, so to speak, so you become less effective in the game. Again, something I really like. So you've got your body stat, your armor, your morale, how many action points they get, the weapon they carry, so whatever, assault rifle, if it's a RPG 7 or what have you, and then just a quick summary of what combat phases this individual goes in. So this is just an individual stat. Alright, what else have they got in here? So skills. So this is a list of basic skills up to there. So you've got pistol, rifle, forward observer, heavy weapon, first aid, spot, throw, which are all your basic skills that everybody has. Again, pretty realistic because every single soldier is cross-trained in heavy weapons and first aid. You know, obviously observing is important. And then you've got crew-only skills, your main weapon, secondary weapon. So if you're manning things like an infantry fighting vehicle, you know, some sort of tracked troop carrier with a heavy weapon on top. They go on to your points costs here. So as you'll see from this, your basic troops are actually very generic. They're not really, I mean, you can personalize them in terms of their name, but in terms of the actual stat lines, is, you know, yes, you roll your body stats, so it's going to be different, but they're still very generic. So here you've got a novice, an average, veteran, 25, 50, and 75 points respectively, and then you've got elite up here, which would be like your tier 1 special forces kind of guys. So pretty generic kind of stuff, and this goes for both your ISAF and Afghan National Army, as well as your insurgent forces. You know, you'd have novice, average, and veteran, and elite insurgent forces as well. So pretty generic, and that's actually one of the things that I don't like about the game is there's not more customization available. I mean, there is already a lot, but you know, it still comes down to fairly generic stuff, which is fun, works for this game. So here we go. They give you a lot of nice graphics on. These are your Orbats here. So you've got a British section, ISAF forces. They give you a breakdown, you know, an example of sections. They've got your standard section, a Royal Marines Commando section, parachute regiment, and then SAS or SB over here. So they give you a breakdown of the various forces. So this is the Brits. This is got Australians, New Zealand, Chasseurs Alpines, and French Foreign Legion. And again, a lot of the stuff is very generic. Yes, they have different weapons, but you know, your rifleman is an average rifleman, no matter what nation they're fighting for. So you've then got U.S. Army, U.S. Rangers, Marines, U.S. Marines over here as well. They give you Orbats for all of them. They give you a bit more information on the ISAF forces here. They give you an example here of force creation. More on ISAF forces here, so you've got skills packages that you can purchase for your troops. They have a points cost, what skills bonuses they'd give you, and then a designation, so sniper, sharpshooter, medic, you know, what have you, will give you bonuses to your medic will give you bonuses to first aid and morale. It costs a lot of points because fixing guys up is pretty good thing in this, naturally. And actually, something to mention on that actually is one of the things in this game that I think is very good, and they've done a very good job of capturing it realistically, is that throughout the battle or throughout a game that you play, your objectives change. Your objectives won't be the same. So your objectives might be initially to, you know, eliminate the ISIS presence in this particular area, or defuse this IED, or that's an improvised explosive device, or clear, you know, a safe lane to wherever. But then throughout the course of the game, if any of your members become casualties, your objective would then change to, it is now to evacuate those casualties and to get your men to safety. So you know, throughout the battle, things can change, and it remains a fairly fluid situation, again, which I like. So they've got some examples here of the ISAF forces, and then they've got insurgent forces, you know, body armors lists, weapons list, and also various packages here. So they've got Taliban packages, and then they've got a second page on them here. These are the extra packages you can purchase that would be on top of your novice or your veteran or whatever, and they give you a quick example. And this is one of the things that I think is, you know, they're a bit underrepresented, and I understand why. It's just difficult to get information on the insurgent forces. And it's a lot easier to get information on the ISAF forces, of course. So I feel that the insurgent forces are a little bit underrepresented in this game. There's not as many Orbats, and there's not as many weapon choices, not as many packages and training options. They're a bit underrepresented. However, I know that Radio Dash Publishing have released an add-on that includes additional insurgent Orbats and packages, which is really good. You can go on the website and have a look at that. They've got special forces and militias here, which of course are, you know, two pretty different kinds of units. Packages for those, basic stats for those. And then they've got a section on combat. Break down your turn sequence. They've got the combat phase table here. So, as I said before, it's an action point system, and you act during various combat phases, 10 of which make up a round or a turn. and they've got that broken down here: combat round, combat phases, action points, and then your various phases here. And then you've got a turn sequence. So running your combat phases, how calling works. When calling out the combat phases, the caller tells the player which body score is activated in that phase. Quite simple. So if you're the caller, you'll be calling out, right, combat phase 1, body score 18 to 20. Combat phase 2, body score 15 to 17, etc., etc. And they've got a real nice graphical representation, easy breakdown, decision sequence. So your character decisions: shoot, hand-to-hand, move, spot, increasing your skills. So if you want to shoot, do you need a spot? Yes. Add or subtract modifiers. Roll a d100. Success. Is it a critical? Unsuccessful. Is it a fumble? So a real easy step-by-step breakdown. Okay. Then they've got a more detailed breakdown here. So your firearms, combat sequence, activation, morale test, spotting, attacking, success, failure, and this includes all of your things such as your morale, action point costs, how to shoot, etc. It's fairly straightforward anyway, but that gives you a real clear, crisp breakdown of how things are done. They've then got a section on spotting, of course, which is important. You know, if you can't see the enemy, you can't shoot them. It's quite, it's that simple, really, isn't it? So pretty important stuff. And things like ghillie suits and being obscured or in hard cover, you can't see through walls and what have you, and all that kind of stuff is included here. And then you've got light, which is very important. A lot of the combat takes place either in dawn or dusk in Afghanistan, so light is paramount. And it's, again, if you're doing like if you're running say for example a special forces scenario, they do a lot of work at night, so night vision is essential, obviously. So it would play a huge impact on the course of that battle. So they've got spotting here, more breakdowns on various modifiers, positioning, distractions, vehicles. They've got modern weapons sighting systems, so you can use sights to pinpoint targets. And they've then got spotting modifiers here. Nice big list. So if a target's walking or running, makes them easier to see. If a target's prone or kneeling, makes them more difficult to see, and what have you. So you've got a huge long list. This is kind of the summary list, the breakdown here. So all right, let's see what else they've crammed in here. So this is just a real simple breakdown, graphical representations. If you are here and you are trying to spot this enemy there, then this is in the way, that's in the way, these are the modifiers. So basically graphical examples. More examples here. Buildings. Okay, so you've got a section on buildings here about modern buildings, inside buildings, open buildings, closed buildings, street fighting, collapsible ladders, breach charges, all very interesting stuff, all very fun stuff. Okay, battlefield communications, vitally important. Naturally, comms is really important. They've got a quick section here, just one page, calling in mortar barrages and fast air, what kind of information that needs to get passed on, and what have you, which is, again, very good to include. So they've got a section on shooting, obviously all the modifiers on shooting. So your target, the modifiers, if you are an attacker, the modifiers, vehicles and the modifiers. They've got a breakdown on the various weapon systems on the next page here. So you've got a listing of your various weapons: hand-to-hand firearms, heavy weapons, damage, range, area of effect, and cost. This is a good time to mention the range, actually, because all the ranges in this are realistic, which means that if you're playing on a 2 foot by 3 foot board or 4 foot by 4 foot board, your LMG or mini-me can fire 500 inches or 1,000 meters. So you can cover most of the battlefield, which I think is good. You're playing on in such a small area when you play on these 4x4 boards that it'd be very difficult to simulate your troops making a dash across 300-meter open ground. You just wouldn't have a board that would be big enough to simulate that in relation to the scale of the miniatures. You'd need like 6mm miniatures. You know what I mean? It'd just be silly. So the scale is realistic scale. So you're fighting in a small area. And your weapons can cover a large distance. One of the things that makes modern firearms so powerful. So they've got shooting here, snapfire, which is an optional rule, which I think is a very good rule. So it's the same as like your ARO kind of thing in Infinity or your Overwatch in Necromunda. So it's firing when the opponent presents itself during his turn, not your turn. And they carry on here with a section of shooting. Shooting carries on. Got your body armor table here, and then your again it affects how fast you can go and the cost. in terms of the points. Shooting, they've got the wound chart, optional mission change rules. Again, very interesting. So when guys get wounded, you know, instead of, you know, going in to kill the enemy, the objective changes once one of your guys get injured to trying to extract them. They've also got a section here on prisoners. So they've got a wound chart table here, and you'll see down the left the damage: 1 to 3 light damage, medium damage, heavy damage, critically wounded, and then dead. And they've got you know, the effects therein. So lightly wounded gives you -20 to all stats, compulsory morale test and first aid all combat phase. The character drops prone and causes a morale test for all that see it happening within 12 inches, and of course it just gets worse as you go down. Now here they've got the optional mission change rules for non-insurgent forces, again changing to extracting your casualties. Grenades, very interesting as well. Again, they've got you know, fairly realistic ranges, and then you've got your kill radius and your damage radius. And then the amount of damage there as well, 4d10 / 1d10 for the inner and outer radius respectively, and the cost in terms of points, and the range that they can throw a grenade. So a hand grenade is 20 inches, so still pretty far range. So it shows how far a guy can lob a grenade. And then they've got grenade throwing modifiers. Again, the throwing stat derived from the body stat. So another section of grenades here. Cooking a grenade, always lots of fun. Surviving grenade attacks. Your scatter chart there. More on grenades, smoke launchers, and then you've got, you know, various kinds of grenades like your grenade machine guns, underslung grenade launchers, and what have you. Consciousness. So this is your when you start making a consciousness roll. They all start with 100%, and as you get wounded, it gets more and more difficult for somebody to remain conscious. And they've got an example there. Morale, again, very important. They've got a section on morale here. They go back to that table on your morale state. They got, here we go. So you got morale modifiers. This is very good as well. So things that become, you know, make your morale a lot more difficult to pass: under sniper fire, or fire by LMG, GPMG, or HMG. So that's light machine gun, general purpose machine gun, or heavy machine gun. Under fire by mortar, barrage, or RPGs, etc., etc. And then they've got your failed morale table. What you do if you fail your morale test. Right, hand-to-hand combat, and nitty-gritty. Again, a nice graphical representation here, a breakdown, a very simple way of explaining it, which is good. Hand-to-hand combat sequence, and then they've got attacker and defender here. In terms of your morale levels, average versus average, or veteran, etc., etc. And I believe these are opposed rolls. Let's have a quick read. Yeah. The defender can also parry or block. There we go, and that's, you work out your skill level the same way. So you attack, work out your percentage, and then parry or block, working out the same. All right, and they give you an example here. Keep on going with hand-to-hand combat in terms of the action and the associated action point cost. And you'll see throughout these pictures, you'll have there's little markers that have been put next to the figures. You get all of these in the back of the book, and you can obviously just photocopy them and cut them out. So more on hand-to-hand combat. Then they got a section on heavy weapons. So you've got a heavy weapons table ranging from, well, everything you want really, 60mm mortars up to, they have 80, yeah, they've got the 80mm there, to 120mm mortar. It's always a bonus, always a winner. Up to autocannons, chain guns, main battle tank cannon. Oh boy, that's going to do a lot of damage, isn't it? Yeah. So you've got your heavy weapons there, and heavy weapon combat sequence. So naturally, with heavy weapons, you're very rarely gonna, or you're almost never gonna have them in a man-packed state. You're always gonna have them mounted. You're gonna have them mounted on an aircraft or a vehicle. To man-pack a heavy weapon is a difficult thing. And they're very difficult to set up quickly, so you generally want to transport them on some sort of a platform, be that a vehicle or an aircraft. Okay, more on heavy weapons here, and they've got your heavy weapons teams. So remember before, heavy weapons is indeed a basic skill that all your guys can get, but you have skill packages that you can add on for, you know, heavy weapon gunners whose job it is to be a crewman in a heavy weapon team, and that gives you bonuses to the skill, of course. So they've got like a mortar table here, scatter deviation table, a barrage table as well for mortar barrages and what have you. Criticals and fumbles, this is always good fun. So if you roll a critical and if you roll a fumble, so 0-1 is a critical and 0-0 is a fumble. So on a D100, you know, rolling 100 is bad. You want to roll low, you want to roll below your skill. You've got a fumble table, hand-to-hand fumble, a grenade missile fumble. Then they've got vehicles and vehicle combat. Always a very useful section, and they've got a basic list of your ISAF vehicles here, as well as you know the sort of unarmored stuff. Like, I mean, you've got a technical up the top there, or you've got a basic Humvee, basically armored Humvee. They don't have many mobility vehicles though, I don't think. Let's have a look here. In the way of mobility vehicles, I'm sure they had a Mastiff. Yeah, Mastiff. That's a mobility vehicle, wheeled. And they got okay, and then they've got vehicle combat sequence. Fine. They've got a armor penetration chart for vehicle damage. Vehicles and vehicle combat. Vehicle morale modifiers. More on vehicle combat here. Fine. And they've got advanced combat rules. So of course, a lot of these are optional. All of these are optional rules in the advanced combat section, but a lot of them are really great. So they've got ISAF advanced combat rules. You know, where you've got extra bits and bobs, forward observation skills, mortar platoons. What else are they including? Sniper teams, fire support platoon. Really, if you want a more realistic representation of Afghan, you want to be including all this stuff, because you've got those elements when you're on the ground. Okay, what else have they got? Fire support platoons, artillery, always a winner. Helicopter and fast air, calling in fast air. So you have your JTACs, your Joint Task Air Controllers, and they can call in air and helicopters. More on ISAF advanced. Then they've got insurgent advanced rules. Again, it's a section I think this is probably the better section of the insurgent side of things, and the more well known, where they can place devices. You know, they can have sniper teams as well, mortar teams as well. Here we go. So you've got things like your booby traps that they can place down, so they can like booby trap areas and booby trap boxes and whatever they want really. Improvised explosive devices, they got the points cost, and then the size of the IED, the associated damage, and the blast diameter. Very effective, very effective weapons. Certainly effective in this game, and very effective in real life as well. Then they've got rules here for technicals, so your unarmored 4x4 pickup truck with a machine gun or a weapon in the back. Some really interesting other stuff here, like rat lines and tunnels, and merging in with a populace, which is all really good stuff in terms of representing the insurgent forces. Again, you know, I feel that they could include more. This is probably, you know, I could probably have some correspondence with the authors over this, but they could include more in terms of the special rules and the actual insurgent Orbats. But I do believe they've covered a lot of this in the expansion that they've just released, which I don't have, unfortunately. So give you a section on an example game here, and they go through in detail a full game, and they give you all the associated charts and what have you. Again, this is quite interesting. So they've got some satellite imagery of a I think this is a real situation that went down. I'm not quite sure, but certainly they're going through it in the game. And then they got at the end, they got some scenarios here. So recon patrol, and the scenario with a breakdown of your rough setup on the table, and they give you the Orbats as well. So what your Taliban, you know, well, in this case Taliban are gonna have in terms of troops on the ground. Another scenario. Oh, sorry. Important victory conditions. So as you can see from the bottom here, the Taliban fighters earn a hell of a lot more points for killing an RSF soldier than the RSF do for killing a Taliban. So, and I think that's quite good. That's quite realistic the way that they've done that. And you'll find with the scenarios that they've balanced them quite well in terms of the RSF versus insurgents. They've balanced the number of troops versus the amount of victory points that each side's getting, so it's quite well balanced. This next mission is Compound 17. I believe it's a Special Forces mission. They give again, you know, quite a nice graphical representation of how you should set your battlefield up. So those are what, 3 scenarios there, and they give you quick reference sheets at the end. So just a quick flick through those. And then they give you your tokens right at the end here. So prone, crawl, kneeling, run, roll, modifiers. Right, so that's the main rulebook. Okay, quite a nice rulebook. Quite easy to read, which is nice, and lots of nice graphics to explain everything. And they've got the Sangin Dispatches #1, volume. I think it's volume 2 is the most recent one. It might even be volume 3. But this basically gives you, as you saw the Orbats in the first book, this gives you rules for Canadians. Here you go. So Canadians and Germans, as well as 7 new scenarios plus campaign characters and character experience rules, which is very interesting, very good actually to include in if you're going to play this game. Running campaigns would be excellent, and yeah, just very, very good. I like the scenarios in this. Let's have a quick look at this and then let's wrap this video up because I've waffled on for quite a while now. Alright, so yeah, here we go. So they give you an Orbat for your Canadian platoon. Good dudes, Canadians. An Orbat for your German Zug or platoon, with all the associated weapons and the weapon damage and what have you. Here we go. This is good. So they've included in here AMP, Afghan National Police. I'm really glad they've done this as a list. I think it's excellent. So you can play as an Afghan National Police Force. 611 Militia. That's a bunch of contractors that were contracted out to build 611 as a road. So they've got that. They've got campaigns and experience here, which is very, very good. This is I think it'll be very, very good to play a campaign of this and do it properly. Okay, and now we go on to some of the extra scenarios. They've got advanced contact. Some of these things probably should have been included in the basic rulebook, but really, you know, you want to be buying this book if you're going to play the game. This extra book, I mean, on top of the, you know, in addition to the main rulebook. So advanced contact. Scenario 2, morning mail. Yeah, that's a dawn attack, Taliban. Scenario 3, IED hunt, so going out to find IEDs. That's always a bag of laughs. Scenario 4, construction camp attack. So again, contractors getting under attack by the Taliban. Scenario 5, foggy morning. This one is the Taliban strike. Yeah, against a patrol, a vehicle convoy. Yeah, vehicle convoy. There we go. So you get, you know, IDs that you can initiate, and Taliban coming in from the top left quarter of the board. And again, as before, you've got, you know, various victory points and breakdowns for things at the bottom of each, or at the end of each section of the mission, and they're all different. So really good and really well balanced. They've got a find the mortar scenario, so Taliban mortar base plate patrol, going out to try and discover a location of a mortar that has potentially been firing on a compound. Scenario 7, support the flank. So this is a as 12 duty drills to close, the men of 3 para are given orders for 1 major push into the green zone. The attack is coordinated a coordinated affair featuring air assets, armor and men from numerous companies. So this will be, your element is part of a much larger picture and supporting another element on the battlefield. Right, so this is an interesting section they've included at the back. Really good actually. A tactical primer for Sangin. So this is some just some extra stuff that doesn't really have much bearing on the game. Well, I mean, I suppose it could. You could put your guys in formation and stuff, but this is all like basic, you know, basic soldering kind of stuff they've included here. This is just a page of it that adds flavour to the game and adds a bit of basic military tactics in, which I think is quite cool. Okay, and then fire team groupings. So again, you can group guys down into fire teams of 4 or 5 men, depending on which nation you're 4 or 5 men. So smaller teams, so subdivisions of squads or sections. Oh, here we go. Actually, number of soldiers here: U.S. Marine 4, French Legion 3, British 4, Pakistani Army 6. Alrighty. So yeah, how to split you guys down into fire teams, and then rules associated with moving and fighting as a fire team. All right. And this is again some more, I believe, some more flavoured. No, here we are. The humble action point. Okay, so I think this is a bit of an explanation behind the design process and the thought that went into an action point / percentage based system. So they go into a bit of that here. Well, and this is really good. I really like this. They've included military dogs in as part of you know, as elements you can have in your force, and they've given you a stat for your handler as well as the actual dog itself, and bonuses and what have you on detecting IDs, because obviously dogs are, you know, sniffer dogs at least are trained to smell out explosives, and they are very, very good at that. And I'm really, really glad that they have included this. It's excellent. So really really good little supplement actually, and just quick combat phase tracker again. They include that table quite a lot. So those are the two books. So I really like this war game. I think they've done a hell of a good job. As I explained in the preamble, they've done their homework. They've spoken to a lot of guys from various nations who are out there at various phases of the campaign, and they've done a good job. Again, they've remedied the issues that I brought up in terms of insurgent forces being underrepresented, both in their all-bats and in the packages and equipment they can carry. That's, I would assume, has been remedied in the new book, which includes a lot more on the insurgent forces. Again, they've gathered a lot more information about that kind of stuff and put it in the second book. Really, really good actually. And actually, even if you're not interested in playing the game, just having that kind of information, if you're just interested in warfare kind of stuff in general, you know, general sort of warfare enthusiast, so to speak, and you like reading up about various battles and wars and campaigns, that information is actually really difficult to get hold of anyway. Actually, I'd say impossible to get hold of, and these guys are pretty much the only guys that have managed to get hold of it, where you can actually buy a book and read up about it. So even if you're not going to play the game, but you're still interested in war and combat and battles, that kind of stuff, I would recommend you pick these books up, because they include some pretty good stuff in here. So fantastic work. I think they've done a very good job, and I would highly recommend you play this game. Just a quick word on where to get miniatures from. I purchased a bunch of US Marines. Actually, let's have a real quick look at some of these figures now from Empress Miniatures, and I think the figures are great. They've done a very, very good job in terms of the kit and equipment and what have you. The only things I'd say that they don't do well in terms of Empress, in terms of the range, they seem to do a lot of the American forces very well and the basic British forces very well, but they don't do British Special Forces well at all. They've got like from the 1980s British Special Forces. They don't have like modern stuff for that, so probably go somewhere else. But these are just some of the miniatures I picked up for the game, US Marine Corps. Really great 20mm scale, fantastic miniatures. Right guys, hope you've enjoyed that review, hope you've gotten something out of it, and look forward to the next video. So here we have a little showcase of the miniatures that I painted for Ringo's Advent Challenge. First of all, a big thanks to Ringo. It really gave me the kick up the arse I needed to start doing some painting and get some stuff done. So absolutely great. And I got this done since the start of his Advent Challenge. This is all for gaming, so this is all my gaming stuff, so it's done to a sort of a pretty basic gaming standard really. So just going to do a bit of a showcase, a walkthrough, talkthrough of the various miniatures. And of course all this here is all Hordes, and in the back those two miniatures are Warhammer. So the first thing we have a look at is Wrong Eye and Snapjaw. I try to go for a bit of a different colour scheme, because my normal gators are done, well, they're done like that. So a bit of a different colour scheme. This is more like a crocodile with the alternating colours on the scales. And I just actually really dry brushed and a little bit of edge highlighting with a grey on the scales, and then alternated colours on the main sort of back plates, and then did the skin with some of the P3 line, and then I gave the whole thing a wash of Athenian camo shade, which I find is really good when doing my gaming stuff for Hordes. So had a lot of fun painting these miniatures actually. They're really characterful, really fun miniatures to paint. And then of course when you finish metal miniatures, loads and loads of varnish on, satin Vallejo varnish. So as you can see, try to get all the decent little details here and there, and it's just a real basic colour scheme just for gaming. So that's Wrong Eye and his buddy Snapjaw. No, sorry, Snapjaw. This is Wrong Eye. So I try to get, you know, make him look like this sort of swampy gator man Cajun kind of dude that he is. And if you have a look at the metal on the end of his staff here, that kind of battered, ruined metal look, that's the metal I'm going to be showing in the tutorial later on in this video actually. So this miniature actually took me a lot longer to paint. This took about a week total, just to get this done to a decent gaming standard. And that's not painting fast or anything like that. That's just painting at a really comfortable rate. And they're great miniatures to paint. Actually, they're a lot of fun. As I said, bag the character, and they're easy to paint, and they come out quite nicely in my opinion. So this is the black-eyed wrestler, really nasty in the game, you know, with the rules and stuff. Really tough cookie to go up against. And with him, there was just lots of graded dry brushing involved, as well as washes. So that's him there. This is my leader, Caliban the Gravewalker. Quite a difficult guy to paint. Got lots of different details and what have you on him, and he's actually quite a difficult guy to play in the game as well. He's got a lot of rules about him. So with this miniature, I just try to go for more of an alligator look as opposed to a crocodile, with red eyes, and painting all the wood and the crystal skull that he's holding in his hand there. And I played around with these leaves a lot that make up his skirt here, and eventually I just kind of went with the brown. I tried to do like all sorts of different leaves and stuff. It didn't really work, but as you can see, just simple gaming standard kind of stuff. This is my solo. He's a witch doctor. I tried to paint him more of an albino doctor. Did a few little effects on the sort of glass jars he's carrying there, and unfortunately this cast wasn't very good. I think you can kind of see it there. The details didn't come out properly. It was kind of like, you know, when the metal goes all like fuzzy and like sort of clotted up, for want of a better term. Yeah, so it's kind of a bad cast, this one, unfortunately, but still a great miniature to paint, and it came out okay. So there we go. And for the this is one of the most enjoyable miniatures to paint, actually, was the Swamp Horror. So as you can see, I try to do sort of bladders filled with water on either side of its head there, and gloss that all over, and then gloss all of the slimy bits underneath his tentacles and what have you, and his eyes, and everything else has just been satin varnished. Really enjoyable miniature to paint. I painted the majority of this, actually all of it in fact, with Vallejo game color. So yeah, it was good fun to paint. And then I did the Swamp Spitter, the Swamp Spitter, I think that's what it's called. So with this one, I wanted to make him look very organic, like he just kind of shuffled out of a swamp. So I made sure that I did like you know, things growing on his shell and what have you, with like vines and moss and leaves and a bit of swamp grass and all that kind of stuff. This guy actually I painted primarily with an airbrush, and I just did a wash over the top of him. So I got all the color grading done with an airbrush, and then I added all of the little effects and what have you to his shell. So next up we've got some Warhammer stuff. As you can see, the Great and Clean one over there, I'm just using him as a Demon Prince. He's not finished yet, but we'll have a look at the Magath Lord. So again, just for gaming, painted this guy up, did most of his skin with an airbrush, and then picked out some of the disgusting details with a custom wash I made out of purple paint, and painted a few of the extra special little effects on him, like you can make out the little maggots crawling in the fur there, and the metallics. I added, you know, rust and verdigris and all that kind of stuff to the metallics. And a lot of fun to paint. I really enjoyed painting this miniature. I've left him free. He's just blue tacked on the top there, so I can change out the various riders and what have you. And I've not added any of the spit or the whatever coming out of its mouth. I've just left that blank, mainly because that kind of stuff tends to break off when you're transporting it. And as you can see, I've still got a bit to do on the base, so that won't take too long. Really fun miniature to paint. And then last but certainly not least is this old metal Great and Clean one, which I'm using as a Demon Prince. This really enjoying painting. It's got some really great details for such an old miniature as well. It's really is a lot of fun to paint. So many interesting bits and bobs going on with this thing. It's just great. And of course it looks gross and ugly, right? Again with the skin, I did all of the gradient and stuff with the skin really quickly with an airbrush, and picked out reds and purples and rotten bits and all that kind of stuff, and then just went in and started painting all the maggots and washed them afterwards with Reichland flesh. And actually I'll do the metallics, and I'll do a bit more on the maggots, and then I'll just base them and he'll be done for gaming. So decent gaming standard miniature. There we go. Christmas tree!
You see, what you have to do is make a cup of coffee and then put the waffle on top so it gets soft.
Morning. Just fucking do it! Right, morning. I've been asked by a number of people now, both on public forums and in private messages, about the future of the Colour of the Gods channel. So, without a shadow of a doubt, you've noticed that I've not made that many videos over the past couple of months. And really, since I've had my knee fixed, my main focus has been getting back to fitness and getting back to, you know, essentially working fitness as well as, you know, a decent personal level of fitness as well, gymming and doing strength training and what have you. So that's been the main focus for the last 6 months since my operation on my knee. So it's as good as it's going to get. It's still not 100%, it will never be 100%, but so it's back to working fitness. And that's been the main focus for the last 6 months, hence why I've not made that many videos. And in addition to that, one of the things that happens invariably when you're on crutches for a long period of time and not able to do a lot of things is you end up with a huge backlog of general life stuff that you have to catch up on. Now, one of the problems I'm going to have in the new year and certainly, you know, indefinitely from the new year onwards, is that my work involves me going away for, you know, up to a month at a time. Where I'm away, I literally cannot make videos. I can't get hobby stuff done. Like it'll be, you know, 3 or 4 weeks away and then 3 or 4 weeks back, and I'll just keep on rotating like that. That's just the nature of the work. And again, you know, when you've missed out on 4 weeks of life, then you get back and you've got to play a bit of catch up first. So I will have some time, but not nearly as much time as I would like to make videos. And don't get me wrong, you know, when I say all this stuff, I would love to be able to do the channel full time. I would like nothing more, because that would be ideal for me, because it would give me time to do stuff for myself in terms of the hobby, as well as, you know, getting a video out every single week. I'd love it. And I've got a huge list of videos. I've got it down on my phone. I've actually written a big storyboard list up in my office. I've got a massive list of videos, and that's not even the complete list. And just that list would keep me occupied for a video a week for 6 months, and that's not even the full list. Like, I've got a lot of stuff I'd love to do. So I'd really like to make it, you know, a full-time thing. But the problem is, it doesn't pay the bills. I mean, monetizing videos only makes you so much money. I mean, you know, I rake in probably about, I think the last time I got some money from the videos was like £60 over the course of 4 months worth of videos or something. So it's barely enough to cover the running costs, just, you know, paying off the camcorder that I had to buy, and the memory card that I've had to buy, and the cables I've had to buy, that, you know, that kind of stuff, and the tripod, and the smaller camera stand for doing stuff on the table, and lighting equipment. It doesn't even pay that stuff off. So it's such a small amount of money that, you know, you can't live on it. So I'd definitely be ears open for any options with regards to that. I know a couple of guys have run Patreon, but to be honest with you, Patreon is the kind of thing where you need, you know, 100,000 subscribers, because the percentage of people that actually bother donating to Patreon is so small. I mean, think of it this way, right? If every single person that subscribed to my channel, and it's nearly 3,000 subscribers, thank you, by the way, I will endeavour to do a 3,000 subscriber special, but that's an aside. If 3,000 people just gave £1 a month, it's nothing. Giving £1 a month people don't feel that. You don't feel giving away £1 a month, okay? And that's all it would take, each person giving £1 a month, and I'd be able to do this as a full-time job. Pay for my house, pay all the bills, get everything done, and be able to do the channel as a full-time job. But you and I know that's never going to happen. You're never going to get every single subscriber just to give £1. It's going to be such a small percentage of the subscribers, usually in the region of about 5%. Okay, so that's 5%. No, it's less than that. In fact, when I looked at the stats the other day, it was something in the region of 2 or 3%. So 2 or 3% of the subscribers is nothing. And that 2 or 3%, people don't give a lot anyway. The average amount is like 3-4 quid a month. So I just simply, you know, and it's not me myself, but it's the demographic that's targeted. So, you know, we're in a wargaming community, and the demographic is so small that even the biggest channels in wargaming still wouldn't make enough money via Patreon to be sustainable. Just the demographic is just too small. If I was doing a channel on sports and fitness, or if I was doing a channel on being a silly bastard, or if I was doing a channel on eating my own shit, that, you know, you'd get hundreds of thousands of subscribers for that kind of stuff. People like silly shit. The demographic of wargaming is just too small, and the percentage of that demographic that would actually donate to Patreon is very small. However, I would still be very much open to the idea, you know, and ballpark figures as to numbers of people that would be willing to give money, and that is the only way that I would be able to do this full time. Simply put, the money I make doing the work that I do is too much to not do, and again, then involves going away for, you know, weeks at a time. So really, the future of the channel is I will keep the channel going, and you've got a backlog of videos from which to draw on. If you count my silly ramblings as some sort of knowledge base, that is. But you know, I really would love to be able to like put out a video a week, but it's just not sustainable. And like I said, that aside, I will still endeavour to get videos out as often as I can. And this little talk now that I'm giving will be at the end of an end of year special video. Is a couple of things lined up one after the other. So that's the way that is. As I said, send me messages, reply to the video, post comments and all that kind of stuff as to ideas that you may have. But other than that, I will try and keep on getting videos out. It just won't be as regularly as certainly I would like. Cheers. Cooler.